Hi there. This is a bit of a strange video. Bit of background to this. I'm a member of audible.com and someone's very kindly taken out a subscription for me. So every month I can help myself to free books on Audible. And at the moment I'm going through the collected works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, read by Stephen Fry. And in Stephen Fry's preface to The Hound of the Baskervilles, goes on about, he seems to be puzzled, let us say, by, on the one hand, you know, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, his literary creation, you know, the great Sherlock Holmes, who represents everything that is rational, logical, um, created, you know, empirical. And so you've got your rationality, you've got your logic, and you've got your empiricism here. And this is his great character of Sherlock Holmes, the best character, well, one of the best characters in literature, I suppose, really. Um, but then on the other hand, you've got Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's obsession with psychism, life after death, and what appears to be completely irrationality, and trying to prove what appears to be irrationality through scientific means, which of course is the basis of scientific illuminism, which of course would coincide somewhat with Arthur Conan Doyle's involvement with the Order of the Golden Dawn, a mystical order of the 19th century that came out of the milieu of psychism and Far Eastern ideas, Buddhism, theosophy. Well, theosophy comes out of Buddhism, not the other way around. Although you wouldn't think it nowadays. You would think that theosophy was the origin of Buddhism. But anyway, that's another video altogether. Um, so you have this obsession with Conan Doyle's irrationality, to the point where he was convinced that Houdini had real supernatural powers, even though Houdini, in a very exasperated manner, tried to tell Doyle that he didn't have supernatural powers, that it was all magic, as in Paul Daniels' magic, as in the magic circle. And that's not to mean, it depends on what you define about magic, because, Houdini's tricks, conjuring tricks, as one might call them, were so fantastic, requiring so much imagination and skill and practical skill and so much, well, rational logic to kind of work out, that you could say that's magic, certainly very, very creative thinking behind Houdini's work and Paul Daniels' work nowadays, although Paul Daniels, wouldn't say he's in the same exact class as Houdini, but certainly different kind of magic, and there's many other magicians out there, members of the magic circle, that have this incredible creative power to make people believe in some kind of supernatural effect. And Houdini went on try, and I suppose Houdini at the end even showed Doyle, one of his tricks and how he actually did it. So Arthur Conan Doyle absolutely hated Houdini after towards the end of his life, and he still held to the belief, in psychic phenomena, astral travel, life after death, angels, demons, the whole bang shoots. And Arthur Conan Doyle would have loved the New Age, for example, with all the radionics and the pseudoscience and all the anti stuff. He'd probably be an anti-vaxxer, of course, very likely. And anyway, Stephen Fry, he can't understand basically why Doyle has this apparent split between Holmes, the paragon of rationality, empiricism, and logic on one hand, and the irrationality, pseudoscience, belief, um, belief sort of nonsense of Conan Doyle's own life. I mean, I suppose you know, and this is a video where I'd say I want to defend Conan Doyle a little bit. Um, you know, I think that Conan Doyle, if you Irish, you know, grew up well. In the 19th century, religion was very prevalent in culture, but as we know about faith-based religions, it basically boils down to believe in Jesus because I tell you to. Because if you don't believe in Jesus, I'll give you a smack. So, or if you don't believe in Jesus, you're not a good American. You're a traitor to your country or something like that. A traitor to your culture. You know, believe in Jesus or else, or believe in Jesus because, or the whole world will go to the dogs, and you know we'll have black people and persons of color running around being savage and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of baggage attached to faith. You know, you don't prove God's existence. You just have to have faith in God's existence. But that really boils down to have faith because I have faith, or because your community has faith, or because we profess faith. We don't even have to have faith, but you have to profess it in a sort of hypocritical kind of way. So we have faith, and that's something that Conan Doyle and his fellow travellers want to get away from, because they want to, you know, have a religion, well, not a religion exactly, but have a system, mystical system, whereby you can scientifically prove that belief isn't just irrational, that it is rational, that it has some basis in science, some basis in logic, empiricism, and inference, and that the data is there, because you know, Sherlock Holmes has this big thing. He says that, and this is a very important thing about empiricism and logic and rationality, is that you have to have data. If you don't have enough data, you're going to come to the wrong conclusion, no matter how logical your arguments may seem. So he would, you know, so Sherlock Holmes would say against the anti-vaxxers is that you don't have enough data to be anti-vaxxer, for example. And because you don't have enough data, you know, you're just coming to logical conclusions, and your argument may seem very logical, but you could still be wrong, even though your argument appears to be very sound. The basis of your argument is wrong, and therefore, because you don't have enough data, and therefore your premises are wrong. Therefore, your conclusion will be wrong, even though your argument will look right. And you know, Sherlock Holmes says many times of himself, you see, that I've sometimes gone wrong because I didn't have enough data, and I have to keep an open mind until I have enough data. And then often you hear the police, for example, saying we're keeping an open mind on a case because they know they don't have enough data to come to any conclusion, to solve the mystery, to solve the crime that faces them, who done it. This is very much the cornerstone of empiricism, is that you need to maintain an open mind until you get sufficient data in order to draw certain conclusions. And of course, the problem is in this universe is there's never enough data, really, to support all the conclusions that you would like to have. So again, you know, perhaps you shouldn't like to have too many conclusions about things because you know there's never enough data really to come to any conclusion about everything. And then of course there is what they call the different orders of reality. So you might come to certain conclusions regarding the action of you know, acids on metals, for example. but there might be rather ambiguous conclusions arrived at when you're talking about quarks and quantum physics, for example. And this, of course, often people look at quantum physics and they say, "Well, this proves, there could be life after death because, that's ambiguous because, but we do have sufficient data to come to conclusions." But you are assuming so many things when you talk about life after death, and you really don't have enough data to support your assumptions. Never mind your conclusions. And then, of course, people, go from one thing to another. They arrive at a certain conclusion, and then they go to another conclusion after that because they think, "Oh, that follows that." But it doesn't necessarily follow that at all. So there's a certain humility attached to empiricism, or there should be. Good science should be quite humble and say, "Well, we don't really know the answers." And indeed, when you go to the hospital and you have various tests and consultants look at you, they're very kind of loath to come to any major conclusion about what's wrong with you because there may not be sufficient data, and their tests may not cover all the possibilities, sort of thing, really. But by and large, they're pretty happy with their conclusions because they do really have enough data, and their tests are pretty accurate. Accurate enough to come to certain conclusions, and therefore, give out certain treatments which will be effective. But of course, ultimately, all treatments are palliative. There's very few treatments that actually cure you. But there's a sufficient number of treatments that actually cure people to say that to recommend medicine nowadays as being pretty accurate and pretty okay. And pretty able to deal with a lot of things. But there are some things which medicine is not able to deal with because the body is a very, very complex system, and we don't know enough about this system in order to draw conclusions about everything that goes right or wrong with the system. So that's one thing. But then, of course, Stephen Fry did talk about, the creative urge, and that, the irrationality of life is something that artists deal in. And it could be that, so Arthur Conan Doyle is talking about, he looks at his character, Sherlock Holmes, and he thinks in many ways he's pretty fake. Because empiricism doesn't answer enough of the questions that mystics have asked over the centuries, and it's not enough, basically. So that's why Conan Doyle sticks to his belief system about psychic life after death and psychism and all this kind of stuff, and occult phenomena. But in many ways, many people have sort of gone back from that position and said, well, magic is art, really. What we're really talking about is creativity. In the same way as Houdini was a creative person, Paul Daniels was a creative person. All the members of the Magic Circle are very, very creative people. They're creating what appear to be occult effects. And A.J. Rawlings is a creative person. She created the entire universe of Harry Potter. And did very well out of it, entertained millions and millions of people, and maybe even did a little bit of ethical training of young people in the process. Although lots of people say that she was a bit amoral for their children to be involved with her Harry Potter universe. Be that as it may, she's certainly quite modern in her moral attitudes. So we have the creativity sort of on the pure creative urge to make something of the irrational, because all my life I've suffered from depression, pessimism, and negativity. So much so that I can say that they are my god, really. Negativity, depression, and pessimism. And they sort of form a god, if you like, a being, maybe on a sort of metaphysical level, or maybe it's just a metaphor, for example, for my psychological state, which is pretty grim all the time. I mean, I've never known anything else but depression, really. I've sometimes been happy, but mostly I'm very depressed and pessimistic and negative about everything. And as I get older, I get more depressed and more negative and more pessimistic. And indeed, when one thinks of Stephen Fry, of course, he's also struggled against depression all his life, and been in and out of hospital and had to cope with things. And you could say perhaps that Conan Doyle has this existential pessimism, that basically there isn't any point to life. There isn't any pattern. There is no intelligence to this universe. It's all just random. It's all just the forces of chaos. And there isn't anything basically, there is nothing else, basically. There is nothing else. And that there is nothing different. Nothing different is going to happen after you die. You're just going to die. There isn't any point to life. Um, there is no higher cause. There is no inevitable salvation. There is just living and dying, basically. And you can take drugs and you can drink and you can put a lot of your self-esteem into your job or into your relationships or into your family or into your community or your country or even a political cause. And you can link all these things to your self-esteem, and you can feel good about yourself. But in the dead of night, you're going to wake up and you're going to say, "What's it all for?" And it's not really for anything. And who cares about environment? Who cares about global warming? Let the world burn. Let the human race become extinct. What does it matter? And that can either be very, very depressing, and can make you go into a faith community as in reaction to that, or make you become a mystic, or make you become an artist, or make you dedicated to trying to understand the universe through the empirical method, um, which is probably the only way to understand the universe. But as I say, you never have enough data to understand the mysteries of nature. And basically, whatever we choose, empiricism, art, belief, uh, whatever we choose isn't going to help. Faith isn't going to help. It's just the universe is blind, deaf, and dumb. It has no intelligence. It's just a monster. We're in the belly of the beast. We're just being slowly dissolved into nothingness. And some people find that thought very liberating, because then it doesn't really matter what you do or what you think. It can lead, I suppose, to psychopathy. So the ethics has to be argued from a philosophical point of view, because it isn't God telling us to be good. We have to work out why it's good to be good, as it were, from philosophical first principles. And you have utilitarianism, for example, which is maximizing of the happiness of the greatest number. We have individualism, happiness versus duty. We have a number of philosophical principles on which to come to certain conclusions about what is ethical, what is moral, and people doing what they want to do. Apparently, is a source of morality as well. Letting people do what they want to do. But there is a limit to that, as YouTube has proved. You're not allowed to say certain things about COVID-19, for example, because that's taking freedom of speech a little bit too far. So there's limits to ethics, obviously, and ethics versus practicality. They're trying to, YouTube is trying to save the world from the anti-vaxxers. It has a cause, because 36% of Americans are not vaccinated yet, and several Boeing 747 loads of people are dying every day because they haven't been vaccinated. Um, And YouTube is doing its part to further the cause of protecting the American citizens and the citizens of the world from the people who what they believe is true brigade, and the people that say they're anti-vaxxers, anti-vaccination when they have no data to support that position. And even if they had data, it's still the case that being vaccinated is better than not being vaccinated, even if it subsequently turns out there are side effects and long-term problems of being vaccinated. It's still better than nothing at all. And better than nothing at all is probably all that we have got in this terrible universe, where basically everything is aligned against us. It's aligned against you as an individual, against your community, against your country, against your economy, against the world itself, against the species. The universe wants to destroy us all. That's the final thing that you can look through observation. You can observe the world and say that everything's really crap and everything's it's a miracle that we're here at all. And there are forces undermining that miracle all the time that will ultimately succeed, and the universe will implode and become cold, and every species will die out, including human. Um, Now, of course, people say, well, what about technology? Maybe technology will take the essence of an individual and put that essence into an android that never dies, sort of science fiction stuff. And I think science fiction is very popular because it's sort of like a belief system. It's what they call futurism, and the future is technology. The future is doing things like that, so that indeed we never do die in the future, because we have conquered death through technology and through empiricism. So that's why empiricism is being defended so hotly at the moment against the belief systems, the irrationality, the cults of irrationality. That's what I might call them, David Icke and Alex Jones and all those sort of people. We need to defend ourselves against them because they will ensure that we never overcome death, that we never overcome our limitations. Whereas if we go for futurism, we will overcome everything that we fear now, which is disease and death and war and poverty and scarcity. In the future, it may be possible to turn energy into matter, matter into energy, and that's a big deal because if you can create food from energy, then you wouldn't have no more food scarcity anywhere because you can create that food, you can create nutrients, from subatomic particles. You could take a body of water and create a cornfield out of it. Then you're basically overcoming scarcity, and if you overcome scarcity, you overcome the major problem with existence at all. So. But we'll always be left with artists and irrationality. We'll always be left with people that say believe in God or I'll smack you. And you'll also be left with people that say I can prove that God exists, that angels and demons exist scientifically. And I suppose we're always going to be left with these elements, as it were. And whether they'll ever come together, I don't know. And I don't know. It seems to me, I say, defending Conan Doyle against Stephen Fry. Um, this this sort of video has not really defended anybody from anything. Actually, I'm trying to look at the problem from all sides. Really, I'm trying to look at the problem, from Stephen Fry's rationality and atheism. I'm trying to look at the problem from Conan Doyle's point of view, with his belief systems and his psychic mysticism, whatever. I'm trying to look at it from the artist's point of view. I'm even trying to look at it from Houdini's point of view, which there isn't anything really, but I can create the appearance of there's something more than this. And I'm had to look at it from the faith point of view as well. Faith communities, building great fortresses around themselves, and not letting atheism in, or even mysticism in, because of fear of because the fear of the mystic and the artist and the scientist will just say, well, there isn't anything really. It's all pointless. It's all completely pointless. Which, as I say, is sometimes a liberating thought, isn't it? That you've only got the here and now, and otherwise there's absolutely no point to anything at all that we're doing. But then you have the futurists that say, well, science and technology. One day we will create a heaven on earth. One day we will create life after death, or basically immortality amongst certain people. But it'd be quite a small elite number of human beings who will achieve immortality. By the way, as it says in a good book, the person who sits on the highest pile of human bones will see the farthest. In other words, collateral damage. It will cost the lives of millions and billions and billions of people to make a very, very small number of people immortal, for example. And that raises sort of ethical issues as well, doesn't it? Really, or does it? Or should we really care about the greatest number? The greatest number are there to make the smallest number immortal and never be without food and energy and lights and go across the universe in ships that go fast the speed of light or faster than the speed of light or whatever. And that's what I did want to make a video about futurism because I find it quite fascinating as a religion. Futurism, it's a religion that's based on reality, or what we call reality, rather than belief, faith, and the dichotomy between faith and belief and rationality. It's saying like all the things that we worry about, like death and scarcity and war and poverty and all that and disease, will all be things of the past. And then you artists and you faith people and you belief people and you psychic people won't have anything to worry about. So you won't basically need all this stuff that you have, all this thinking, all this art. It'll all be dead and gone. But I can't help thinking though that there's going to be something about the universe that fundamentally is irrational and is horrible and is because you can't. There's always a price to be paid for everything, isn't there? Really. So you could have your immortal elite, living in spaceships and spacecraft and being able to convert matter to energy. You'd have all these people, but there'd be a terrible price to pay, wouldn't there? Well, there will be for you and me, because we won't be included in that elitist, wonderful society. We will have contributed to creating it, but then they'll have, when they're done with us, they'll throw us in the rubbish heap, like everything else. And that worries people like Alex Jones. He gets very angry about that because he says, "Well, I want to be included in the good life because I'm an American." But in fact, well, you won't be, Alex Jones. You won't be included in the elitist good life of the New World Order because why should you be included in it? I mean, you're nothing really. You're just a brick in the wall. You're just something you're a stepping stone basically to better things, aren't you? Really. And you could find that very liberating too. You could just say, well, I'm a stepping stone. I'm collateral damage. If the vaccination program for COVID-19 has a terrible effect, well, that's too bad. But ultimately, it'll be good because they'll be able to create safer vaccines as a result of my horrible experience. So with them, and so basically, I'm a stepping stone. I am collateral damage. And there is nothing else in this universe, and technology and futurism is the only way to look at the world at all. So I don't know what I've really done with this video. I'm not really quite sure if I've defended Conan Doyle. I don't think I have actually. I think I've more defended Stephen Fry actually, even though I set out saying, well, I don't think it's been very fair to Conan Doyle, but maybe it has been terribly fair to him, really. Fairer to him than Conan Doyle deserves, actually. And Stephen Fry's been nicer to Arthur Conan Doyle than he should be, really. And I think of Professor Grayling and his rhetoric and his polemic against the what we believe is true brigade and the faith brigade and even the artistic brigade that kind of hides behind art, but they believe in psychism and God, really, and superstition. I never met an actor or an artist who isn't highly superstitious. Um, so I don't know. It's a bit of a rant, a bit of a ramble. I'm not quite sure what this has to do with Gnosticism whatsoever. I don't think it has anything to do with Gnosticism, really. But I think that's on a different level of knowledge, perhaps. But again, is it just sophism? You know, Gnostics claim they have all the data that's needed, but do they have any data at all? I don't know. But presumably, if you're a subscriber to this channel, you believe that. And are you an artist? Are you a conspiracy theorist believer? Are you a faith-based person? I don't think you are. Or are you a scientist? Or basically, is there such a thing as scientific illuminism? Where the existence of demons and angels can be proved. But of course, that doesn't prove that you will live after death, does it? I mean, if God exists and angels exist and demons exist, you might not be included in that ecology. You might be might be like just like a leaf on a tree. You die basically, and the tree goes on. So the tree is God or demons and angels, and you're just a leaf on that tree. And just because you can prove the existence of the tree doesn't mean to say that you can prove the existence of a leaf going on forever. It doesn't go on forever. You don't go on forever. You die like the leaf on the tree. So bear that in mind as well, really, this kind of feeling that I'm going to live forever. As Freddie Mercury says, who wants to live forever? Which is another video entirely.